Divorce solves nothing. There are so many men and women that get divorced today in our society. And the vast majority of these divorces do not need to happen. They don't need to happen. They happen because of ignorance and because of a lack of, it's mainly ignorance, but it's also a lack of choosing to take the relationship, the commitment as seriously as it needs to be taken. Now, before I go any further with this video, I'm going to preface everything else that I'm going to say by saying that there are, of course, some circumstances where divorce is certainly necessary and warranted, right? There are extreme abuse situations where it really doesn't matter what a partner does to try to turn things around. It's really abusive, right? And we're talking about physical abuse, but also really emotional abuse. You know, there's narcissists, there's real, shitty people out there that unfortunately other people chose to marry. So yes, there are, of course, some situations where it's warranted to actually get a divorce, but in the vast majority of circumstances, it's not warranted. And for anyone who doesn't understand polarity, and they don't understand a man and woman's natural roles, and they don't know how to shift into their natural roles, it's understandable why, let's talk about women for a moment, right? Why so many women would eventually want to get divorced, because they will put in all this energy, all this effort into the relationship, and the man is just not shifting. It's not shifting. It doesn't get any better. It gets worse. He gets more withdrawn, more gaslighting, more whatever, right? Nothing gets solved. So of course a woman is going to get to that point if she doesn't understand polarity. She doesn't understand what her role is, where she's like, I'm done. But polarity is what gives you, like the understanding of polarity gives you the ability to shift everything in your relationship, in your marriage. Okay. But even with polarity, right? Even once you understand, so talking as a woman for women for a moment, right? Say, oh yeah, I gotta use feminine communication. Got to be permissive. I've got to let go of control. I've got to stop trying to take care of my man. I got to stop exposing myself to his complaining and his other BS. I got to learn how to flow away rather than getting into arguments, right? All of that kind of stuff that needs to shift. Even once a woman starts to understand those things that need to be shifted, it's still extremely difficult, right? It's one thing to have the information, but then it's another thing to actually implement all of it. Why? Because one, it's terrifying. It's painful, right? Because it's not going to be smooth, right? If you get into a marriage with when you've got all these issues, you got a ton of issues, you're going to probably be attracting and marrying a man who's got just as many issues as you, right? If you're really unhealthy, then you probably attracted and committed to a man who is also very unhealthy. And now you're in a situation where, what do you do about it, right? Do you divorce? Well, what's going to happen if you divorce? What's going to happen is you're still just as unhealthy, right? You attracted that person for a reason, and now they are going to be mirroring how you are showing up and your level of self-worth, right? To one extent or another, right? It's possible that there can be deviations, but for the most part, that's what you are or that's what they're reflecting. So if you divorce, okay, it's going to be very expensive. That's going to be very time consuming. That's going to be very painful. If there's children involved, that's going to be extremely painful for them, of course. And then what? Now you're stuck in a situation where you are single again, you're divorced, and you haven't actually solved any of your problems. So now you're going to be attracting similar types of men, or if not similar types of men, then still men around the level of shifts that you have made or not made. That might manifest differently. So it's still going to be a giant problem. And what really, I just, it's amazing seeing it in our society. These people, both men and women, who end up getting divorced and then married multiple times, like 2, 3, 4 times. And you would think at some point they would be like, there's a common denominator here. I wonder what it is. Maybe it's me, right? Maybe I need to actually be shifting something in myself. But no, it's the same pattern of, no, it's my partner, they changed. They're just toxic. They're whatever. I can find someone better. Grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, except that it's not, because it's not a fence that you're looking at, right? You're not hopping over onto the other side of the fence. You're looking in a friggin' mirror. And until you change yourself, you're going to continue to get back what you look like, or like what you are, right? How you're showing up. It doesn't solve anything by running away from it. And again, I will say, right, really abusive situations where like you literally have done everything that's possible to do. You got to be really careful, because do you really know everything that you need to do? If you've done that and a partner's not shifting at all, okay, yeah, you do need to flow away. But again, that's the minority. That is the minority of situations. Like, we're talking the 10% or less. Most divorces were for no reason. They were for no reason except that you gave up before you realized what you needed to do, exactly what you needed to shift, or you figured out what you needed to shift. This is less likely. You figured out what you needed to shift, and then it's too hard, so you gave up. It's like business. It's like business. Like, life is hard. Like, if you want to be really successful, especially if you started out, with what do you get? Like the short straw, right, of life. Like, you were born into a really unhealthy family. They traumatized you. You didn't get any kind of healthy imprinting of how to function in a healthy relationship. That makes your life a lot more difficult. And it makes your relationships a lot more difficult, right? But it's like business. Most people end up failing in business. Their businesses go nowhere. Why is that? It's because, one, they gave up, right? They didn't persevere through whatever challenges they're dealing with, and they didn't know how to actually solve the problem, whatever problems that existed. It's one or both of those things. And it's the same thing in a relationship, right? There are solutions for what you are experiencing in a marriage, right? So, using women as an example again, let's say, I don't know, let's say that you've got a man who is arguing with you a lot, right? There's so many ways, so many problems that can show up in a marriage or relationship in general. But let's say there's lots of arguing, and you're trying to express your needs, you're trying to express problems in some kind of way, and he just gets angry and gaslights and shouts at you and judges you and is very critical of you and all of that kind of stuff, right? Many women have experienced that. I got a lot of compassion for that. But from your end of things, you're thinking, oh, I'm doing everything that I can. My man just doesn't care. And you might think, oh, like, I'm being calm, I'm being respectful, I'm being whatever, and he just gets triggered by the smallest stuff. Okay. But is that because you're actually being disrespectful and don't even realize? And this is where we get into feminine communication, because there's so much that women don't understand about what respect really is to a man and what disrespect really is to a man. If you are controlling or judging or leading or resisting in any kind of way, if you are not being permissive, if you are not being vulnerable, if you're not asking for help, if you are not sharing your problems without complaining, right? A man is going to feel on even the most subtle level when you are in even subtle masculine energy. And if he's not very healthy, then he's going to get quite triggered by it, right? And respond in unhealthy ways. And then what's happening? You're getting the reflection of how you are showing up. You are going into the bathroom and looking in the mirror. Oh, right? And so what do most people do? What do most people do? Well, they punch the mirror. They say, fuck this mirror. I'm going to get a new mirror. I'm going to get a new mirror. This one looks like shit. This one isn't working for my bathroom. It's going to be the same reflection, right? Because you don't understand how you need to shift internally and how you need to shift your behaviors to start shifting how your man is showing up. And see, so my mindset, I'm going to talk about my mindset for a moment, right? I don't give up in my life. I'm 39 years old. When I was 23, I spent a decade. I had severe social anxiety disorder. I wasn't diagnosed, so I shouldn't say disorder, but social anxiety. I mean, all those diagnoses are just bullshit anyway. I had a lot of social anxiety. I couldn't talk to women. I could not talk to women. Could not have a conversation with a woman, especially if I liked her. And I could barely have conversations with men either. I couldn't just go up to people and make friends. Basically, I had no friends in university. I had like one. He was my roommate. And I spent 10 years pushing through every single fear that I had to move through that, to get to a place where I could go talk to anybody in anywhere, club, on the street, in a mall, doesn't matter, and start an interaction, start a relationship right from the beginning. There were so many times during that process, right? Like there's so many fears and there's so many points where I was so depressed and I just wanted to give up. It was just too hard. Just the amount of rejection, the amount of failure. It was painful. It was really painful. And I would tell myself a lot of stories, just like everybody does. And I wanted to give up. Sometimes I would take a few days off. But I always kept going. I always kept going because I 100% I knew that if I just kept going, I could shift everything that I needed to shift. And I could become basically fearless. That was my ultimate thing, was becoming fearless, being myself. And developing, part of that is just, I guess, who I was once I really started shifting things, but also it was something that I cultivated as well. Just this mindset of I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to figure out the solution. I'm just going to keep practicing. I'm going to just keep showing up until everything shifts. Right? And that's the exact same mindset I've used in my business. My business is quite successful. There's been a lot of struggles and there's been a lot of times I've wanted to give up. And it's the same mindset that I've had in my marriage. Polarizing my marriage was not easy. It was really, really, really difficult. And there was definitely a lot of times I wanted to give up. It was very frustrating. And a lot of needs that were not met for a long time. And I had to do almost all of it from trial and error. Right? Like for people that are watching this video, you've got a massive leg up from what I had to deal with. At least in this respect, I may have certain advantages that other people didn't have, but in this respect, you have a huge leg up. And what is that? That I did all this work and then I wrote a whole bunch of books about it and I created a business, teaching it in the academy. And I created a masterclass to show you how to shift your communication, how to shift your behaviors, how to shift your energy, how to shift your self-worth, how to shift everything that you need to shift so that you can get a much different reflection in that mirror. How to get a much different reflection in that mirror. You can end up saving so many years and so much heartache and so much frustration if you just start implementing this communication. And you start to realize the more that you do it, the more that you do it, and the more that you open yourself to it, the more that you realize the problem is you. The problem is you. And again, I will say one more time, yes, there are some really, really, really shitty partners out there where it does make sense to divorce them or leave them or whatever, right? But again, that's the minority. Yeah, but even if you do leave them, the problem's still you, right? Because you attracted them, so you still have a whole bunch of stuff that you need to shift. And so for anyone that's in that kind of position, I was like, my marriage sucks. I kind of want out. I don't think I can do this anymore. Well, listen, maybe that's the case. Now, you might be in that tiny minority where that is the case, and you need to leave because it's abusive, because nothing can shift no matter what you do. But before you do absolutely. Well, actually, I should say this: if it's really, really abusive, like physically abusive, and just like absolutely, and you're not contributing at all to it, just leave. Okay, in those situations, it's in most of those situations, yeah, just leave. But I'm talking about less severe situations. Before you leave, do absolutely everything that you can to shift yourself. Because if you don't do it in that relationship, you're just going to have to do it in the next one anyway. Because you didn't do the work. Divorcing doesn't solve the problem. Only shifting yourself solves the problem. And you need to know how to shift yourself to solve the problem, right? Very few resources out there are giving you any, they're leading people in the wrong direction, right? Like couples therapy. That's all bullshit. That's all bullshit and a waste of your money. Because those therapists, they don't understand polarity. They don't understand polarized communication. They don't understand a man's instincts. They don't understand a woman's instincts. So how are they going to help you? Right? Most of the resources out there is not going to be very useful. And you might think it's useful. You might read all this stuff and then you try implementing it and it doesn't work. And then guess what? It doesn't shift. And then you think, okay, it must be my partner. No, it's still probably you. I mean, it is your partner too, right? It's not that you're the only issue. Your partner is going to be just as much of an issue, right, on their end. But you can't change that until you focus on you. So focus on you first. We got 4 days left until our polarized communication masterclass, where we show you how to shift this communication. We show you how to shift your behavior. We show you why it is not working in your relationship with the way that you are showing up. And we show you a much, much better way to actually start shifting, start getting a much better reflection. 4 days left. Join us. relationshipofyourdreams.com. Go to my website, book a spot, and join us. If you miss this one, you miss it until September. If you can make it, join us. 2 hours. We're going to show you all about polarized communication, and then we're going to role play it for you. It's going to be the best 2 hours you've ever spent learning about how to transform your love life. I'll see you there. relationshipofyourdreams.com.